right, this is how we're going to start out our tic-tac-toe board. You're going to have a pattern that looks similar to this and a piece of felt. You're going to line up the rounded edge with the top. Notice how your pattern is not as long as your felt. That's okay. It's supposed to be that way. But you're going to line up the rounded edge with one end, and you're going to use your pins to keep it in place. You're only going to need 2 or 3. Notice how the pin heads, the rounded parts, go towards the outside edge of your fabric. And after you pin that in place, you're going to take some scissors and you're going to trim off your corners. Okay. You can just throw these little pieces away. All right, after you've done that, you need to mark where your tic-tac-toe lines are going to be, and they're going to be where these dashed lines are. The way I like to do it is I'll take a pin and I'll stick it right on this side of that line and on this side of the line, on this side of the line, and this side of the line. And I'm also going to mark where they are in the middle.
She sent them to my Gmail.
Okay. You're also going to mark your pins on each side. You might have to unpin the top half so you can mark this side of the line too. Now, if you are good at making lines, you can then take your thread and your needle and just start sewing across. But sometimes I like to take a piece of chalk and just very lightly go over those lines so I don't get confused. Those might be hard to see, but just very lightly take your chalk and make those marks on your paper, on your felt. All right, if you do that, you can go ahead and take your pins out, but keep your pattern piece handy in case those chalk marks get removed. That way you can go back in and fix them. All right, the next step is to take your piece of cotton thread. This is the thick stuff, not the hand sewing stuff. And you want to make sure you pick a color that is contrasting to your felt. So choose one that's a light pink if you have a dark purple, or a dark thread if you picked a light colored felt. Make sure you use the video to, make sure you have your knot at the end. You're just going to start on one side, and this is going to be the outside of your fabric, so your knot should be on the inside. So you're going to start on the back side, and go ahead and just start making your stitches. Make your stitching so that they have little tiny bites. That'll make your lines nice and straight. All right, I've got my 2 stripes done this way. I'm going to go back with my chalk. I'm going to go back with my chalk and re-chalk those lines because they're starting to disappear. And I want to make sure I start right where my end of my line is. So I'm going to take my needle and go from the back end of my fabric. Make sure you tie your knot again. Going from the back end of your fabric. And go across. Now you're going to go up. Now when you're making your stitches, you want to make them even, so about the same size, or big ones on the top and little ones from the bottom. Your choice, whatever you like better. And you want to stop when you get to the end of the line. Now you can do a couple more stitches than just one at a time once you start to feel comfortable with it. They are a little bit more difficult to pull through, but once you get some practice stitches in there, you can do 2 or 3, I call them bites at a time. And just make sure you stop when you get to the end of your chalk line, because you need to turn it over and tie another knot. I'll show you how to do that. Make sure, see how my thread is doubled up? You want to make sure it's only 1 layer thick. So pull your other end, your tail through a little bit. You pull your thread up. And you're going to take your knot by making a little bite through like that. Not so much that you can see it from that side, but just a little bit. You're going to pull your needle through. And then you're going to stick your needle through the loop. See this loop that's still here? Stick it through the loop before you pull it all the way tight. I like to double knot, especially when it's this thick of thread. Okay, I have one more strip of fabric, or one more tic-tac-toe line to do. Alright, so now you should have, if you look at the top, 4 lines, 2 vertical, 2 horizontal. You turn over on the back, you'll see all your knots. No big deal, because we're just going to cover those up. Right, this is where you're going to fold your tic-tac-toe forward so that you're covering up your knots. You're just going to fold to the edge of those lines, like that. On the back side is where you're going to put your button. You're going to want to fold the flap down like this and find the middle, because that's where you're going to put your buttonhole. You don't want it too close to the bottom because it makes it too, it might break. So you want to find the middle of your flap and come back here, kind of mark with your finger, and that's where you're going to place your button. If you still have enough of the thick thread on your needle, you can sew it on with that, but I find that it's easier to sew it on with regular thread. You're just going to double it up and tie your knot so that both threads are knotted. And this is how you start. You start from the top of your button. You go in and you pull it all the way through. Make sure you're not sewing through the back, both pieces. And you're going to pull it so that the knot comes through. Okay? Now you're going to go back up. And this is when you place on your button. Make sure your button's nice and centered in the middle. You're going to pull your needle up, put your needle on your, put your button on your needle, pull your thread up, and then go back down. You're going to do that. Go ahead and move that out of the way. You're going to go ahead and make at least 3 or 4 stitches through each set of holes. And you're going to go to the opposite side. So up, down, up, down. There's 3 stitches for that one. You're going to do 3 stitches for this one. You just kind of feel around, put your needle through and just feel around until it goes through the hole. You'll do 3 more stitches. Here's the trick though. When you go back down this last time, you only go through the button, not the felt. You take your thread, you go around your button. You make 3 loops. 1, 2, 3. Then you take your needle and you look at the back of the button and go straight down through your felt to the back side. You're going to take your needle and you're going to slide it underneath those thread loops you see. And you see that loop again, you're going to go through it, pull it tight, and do that 2 times. Make a loop, stick it through the loop, pull it through, and then trim your thread. All right, now your piece should look like that. When you fold it up again, make sure you line it up. You're going to line up your flap, and you can use that chalk again to mark the middle of your button. Here's my button. It's going to be that long. I'm going to make a mark. And this is when you take your scissors, you fold your felt right there on the line, and you give it a little snip to get it going. And now this only works with felt. If you were to do this on fabric, you'd have to make a buttonhole with the machine. Otherwise, your fabric would Anyway, so here comes your button. Goes right through the hole, and you're ready to stitch up your sides to make yourself a pocket. All right, so this is what we have so far. We have our tic-tac-toe board. We have our button on. We want to unbutton. We want to make sure we're still lined up on the end of our lines. Turn it over to this side. It's okay if these stick out a little bit because we'll trim them off. If you would like to, you can put some pins in here to keep it steady. Choosing the right thread means picking a color thread that matches your fabric. I'm just going to use this dark blue so you guys can see it. And right here, you're going to line up the edge of your fabric right here on the edge of your presser foot. Okay, right here on the edge of your presser foot is where we're going to line up the fabric. Okay? You're going to put your presser foot down about 1/4 of an inch in from the top of your flap here. You're going to go ahead and roll it down into your fabric. You're going to put your presser foot down. Make sure you backstitch by pushing your backstitch button. And you're going to go to the top of your flap and then sew all the way down to the bottom of your bag. When you get to the end, don't forget to backstitch. And pick up your presser foot, pull it back a little bit, and you're just going to kind of keep these threads out of the way. Keep these threads out of your way with your finger. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. Roll it down about 1/4 of an inch in, presser foot down, backstitch to the end, and then go all the way to the top. Make sure you're going nice and slow and steady. There's no reason to rush. And backstitch at the end. You're going to roll your needle out, pull it through, and trim off your threads. Okay, now you've got your tic-tac-toe lines. You've got your button. You've got your buttonhole. We want to go back in and trim out any of those little strings that are hanging out. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want to cut them off. And once you have it buttoned, you have your nice little game of tic-tac-toe. You can use pennies and nickels. You can use pom-poms. You can use buttons that you have around your house. And now you have your tic-tac-toe board and a place to keep all of the pieces.